And what I said was that I personally believe that you had the revenue estimating conference that came back in November, and nobody literally didn't bring it up. None of the people running for office brought it up. Jon Bel Edwards didn't bring it up. And so nobody specifically asked any of them a question. Well, at least I didn't hear anything. The revenue conference says this, and it's much worse than we thought it was going to be.
Of course they're not.
I'm sorry?
Of course they're not, Steve, because the next question is going to be, well, what are you going to do about it? And, they're going to look like they're not competent. So they didn't want to touch it.
But my point is that during the debate in November, nobody brought it up. The media didn't bring it up. Okay, no, I mean during the debates they didn't bring it up. Okay, so is he lying if he's not asked a question? Jon Bel or David Vitter, hey, listen, revenue conference is indicating that things are a whole lot worse, and that we're going to be $1.9 billion in a hole, and that's totally separate from the $750 million that that has to be, it's due by the middle part of next year. So are you going to raise taxes? To me, that's the question. The question is whether or not somebody's lying is the question that's asked. Anyway,
you said it best, Steve. The media did a poor job. The media did not just a poor job, an abominable job. There wasn't a good question or a good interviewer in all those various debates from the Baton Rouge TV stations and the Shreveport TV stations. Who's the guy with the NBC outlet down there that spent the first 30 minutes asking about, did you ever smoke marijuana? And didn't touch the budget, didn't touch solid questions about education. So shame on the fourth estate. And, the only people asking the tough questions are within a group like this, the three of us, others who, you've got some bloggers that just kind of report the news. But there's very few people out there asking the tough questions. C.B. Ferguson, our dear friend who passed away, wasn't really involved in the flow for the last couple of months. He obviously has some huge problems. What a tremendous loss to the state. And so here newspapers are cutting back, they're firing people, laying people off. So there's a lot of incompetence in those who are asking questions, and there's not nearly as many people asking questions anymore. So look, I'm speaking, I guess, with two hats. I'm to put one hat on, the other off. I'm speaking now more as an observer and a writer and someone who writes columns and gives radio views on this very thing. But I was a public official for 28 years. And so, if I wasn't asked the question, I wasn't going to jump in and say, oh, by the way, I got this question. I don't know what to do about it if I get elected, but let me tell you how bad things are. No politician is going to do that. So those in the mainstream media who could have asked the tough questions didn't do so, and those running just didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. They said, look, it'll be tough when I get in there, but let me get in there first. Then I got 4 years to fool with it. So that's just the nature of how this whole thing played out.
Lamar.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Jim. I also think that there's just a fundamental lack of curiosity among members of the media in Louisiana right now. And I mean, a lot of this has to do with the consolidation of mass media. Like Jim said, I mean, there's an example of this is that Gannett, who used to have several different Capitol reporters from all over the state that would come in. We had a guy from Alexandria that had an office in the Capitol. Now there's only one, and he's sort of a part-time guy instead of having, correspondents from all over the state. And that was reflected in the coverage of the governor's election, which I think had a lot more to do with personality and scandal than about substance. And the other thing is really people graze for news now. They don't really take the time to read a newspaper from front to back. They graze for their news on Facebook and on Twitter. And so they look for whatever headline grabs their attention. And that's the way the news is packaged. And something as nuanced and as meaty as the budget just doesn't get a lot of clicks, And it's unfortunate, but that's the truth.
The other thing, Steve, if I could throw this out too, is that what I'm finding is that those who do cover the news are younger people. The salary level has been cut dramatically. What people were making in radio and TV and newspapers 10 years ago is probably cut by a third or more in what they're making today. I've talked to a lot of these folks, and I was in radio and did pretty well back in the middle 2005 range, and people doing the job I did aren't making half of what I made back then. Number one. And then look at who's covering the news. You had those war horses. You had Jack Wardlaw with the Picayune, who'd been there forever. John Hill, who was with Gannett. Wiley Hilburn. A number of major newspaper forces who commanded respect, who did investigative reporting, got into the nuts and bolts. They're not around anymore. They've all retired or died off. And so those who are taking their place are wet behind the ears, don't have really the knowledge, and are underpaid, so that someone who really has some ability just can't get attracted to the job. You've got Tyler Bridges with The Advocate, who's doing a good job. Tyler's writing a book about this whole election, I understand. And so you've got Jeremy Alford and some folks, but you don't have the numbers like we used to, and we don't have the inquisitive minds that had lots of experience, as Lamar said, like we used to.
Well, go on.
There's no institutional knowledge there, and it's funny that the several stories that I can point to that I've written on, and that the Times Picayune has written on, for example, the reporters there haven't just taken the time to go into their own archives to see what the backstory is about things. So it's the lack of institutional knowledge that really does cripple the ability for the media to report accurately. And all this stuff is now online. It's the lack of curiosity. Like I said, it's as simple as just Google searching your own newspaper's archives. If that makes any sense to y'all. I mean,
Sure, right on.
Yeah. There's a plethora of information out there, and there's a lot of people, Lamar, like yourself, and of course, Jim, you're writing a column, and I do some writing, and we do a lot of this video stuff, and obviously the underground media, if you want to call it that, really is scooping a lot. CB, did a lot of good work, but that's where a lot of the content is coming from. And
look at the opportunity they're missing, Steve. You see, you're filling the void with what you're doing. But if I were the editor of the Times Picayune or the Advocate or the Shreveport Times, I'd tell my reporters, look, we're going to have at the end of the day, we're going to have a 30-minute or an hour talk session about what happened in the news today, and we're going to put it up in video on our website for our newspapers. That would be very interesting. But nobody does that kind of thing, and it's technically easy to do. And there's no cost to it. You've got your own people to do it, but you just don't have that commitment to go that extra mile. I've just been really disappointed in terms of what you can read. You have to go to folks like us, number one. Even in the national news, you've got to go to off-sites. The New York Times, I've taken the New York Times for years. I quit subscribing to it because it's just not that interesting anymore. They don't have the in-depth reporting. They're just not the same paper. You got to go to other blogs and websites to get the overview. And so different world out there today, totally different world.
Let me shift gears and get back on the main issue. And, obviously we have a situation with Jay Darden is going to be commissioner of administration. A Republican. And you are having a debate right now about the Speaker of the House. I happen to talk to a very high-ranking Republican official who said that the governor has more stroke than the chairman of the Republican Party, and so therefore the Speaker of the House, may end up being a Democrat. What's your take on the Speaker situation?
Well, I think there's two issues that Republican representatives are dealing with. Number one, do they give in to the governor's pressure and support a Democratic Speaker candidate? Do they support Walt Leger, or do they hold back And if Cameron Henry, the state representative from Jefferson, is not acceptable, is there an acceptable Republican that they can work as a compromise? Right now, no, the governor is saying he has the votes, and the Republican caucus are saying they have the votes. And everybody's kind of leery about you're showing your numbers. I'm told if you say, well, let me see the names of who you got. Well, we're not going to do that. So it's going to be a very tight vote. And I guess if I had to guess, if it's a secret ballot, if they go on a secret ballot, it's going to be hard for the governor to prevail. Now, the governor obviously wants an open ballot so that those representatives are online as to who they voted for, so that he can hold them accountable in his future dealings with them. So you got that speaker issue, then that whole thing flows over into the legislation. We talked about raising taxes, takes a 2/3 vote. Will the Republicans stick together and oppose the governor? And we saw that on the national level. I mean, let's face it, it was a great upset for Jon Bel Edwards, but this is a Republican state. 4 years are going to go by fast. And the state Republican Party is certainly going to look for a candidate to take over the governorship 4 years from now. So there's a lot of jockeying right now that's going to have a bearing in that election 4 years from now. And I'm told they're working very hard, they being the Jon Bel Edwards camp, to try to pull off 5 or 6 more votes. No deals are made. We all know that no deals are made down in Baton Rouge, but I hear that if you're a Republican legislature that can handle the criticism back home, because you're going to catch a lot of criticism if you vote for a Democrat for speaker. If you can handle that, you can write yourself a heck of a ticket in terms of promises coming out of this administration right now. Now, they'll deny it, and we know that probably is not true, but that's exactly what's happening there, Steve.
Okay, so we have Joey. Joey Falgout, why don't you introduce yourself first? Tell us what you do. I know that you're very involved with broadcasting. I have about to 8:30, but Joey, go ahead.
Well, hi everybody. I'm Joey Falgout. I was on the radio for over 20 years, Joey Sanders, all over Louisiana. Worked in the Alexandria market. I worked here in New Orleans. I've worked both as a disc jockey and as a broadcast engineer. Was the broadcast engineer a little bit after Katrina for the Citadel stations, which are now the Cumulus stations. I've also worked for Talk Radio Network and Sporting News Radio as their chief engineer. So I've always been a talkative person, so I try to keep on top of what's going on.
Yeah, we communicate on Facebook, and so I really like what Joe. He's really in the middle, I believe, which I think is hopefully where I try to be. But Joey, so we're talking about the speakers, and I'm sure you're familiar with what's going on. And I don't know if you heard what Jim said, but basically what Jim was saying is that he agrees that the governor has a lot of stroke. And that if a Republican can kind of hold on and not be overly concerned about getting zapped in 4 years, he's going to, if that Republican supports, in this case, the Democrat candidate for Speaker of the House, then that's going to be good for that Republican. Anyway, what's your take?
Well, right now, I think a lot of what's going on is, a lot of people are very skeptical because of the fact that, we have a Democrat coming into the governor's mansion, and I think they'd really like to see a Republican stay in control there, in the legislature. But as you said, the governor's going to have a lot of stroke, and I think they need to pick their battle. And I don't think they want to come straight out of the box with fist up and ready to punch somebody out. I think they need to sit back a little bit and let Jon Bel get his bearings here and pick the fight. If this guy's not doing what needs to be done, then there are ways of changing things around. And now might not be the time to make that fight.
Lamar.
Yeah, well, I think this is kind of a shame that we're even having this conversation. Jon Bel won with the broad coalition, 57% of the vote. I know it was sort of a perfect storm for him, but the moment that he got in the runoff, he made it clear that he would, or really after he won, made it clear that he was going to form a coalition government Jay Darden as his commissioner of administration. He's appointed several Republicans to high positions in his administration already. And the very first thing that these guys want to do is pick a partisan battle when, part of the problem with what Bobby Jindal is, the Bobby Jindal's leadership over the last 8 years has been that it's been so partisan that we've replaced common sense with this partisan battle. And I know Lance Harris. He's from Alexandria, and I've known his family for a long time, for most of my life. I just think this is the wrong battle for Lance to pick. I think that this is about politics as theater and not about being practical. The governor has a line item veto. All these guys know this. And Walt Leger is not exactly a huge liberal. I mean, he's worked with conservatives in the past. He's a good middle of the road guy to pick. I don't get why we're fighting this. We've got much bigger issues to deal with. And, all of you know that historically the governor has always picked the Speaker of the House. So this would be sort of unprecedented and I think a little disappointing.
Well, let me jump in there, though, Lamar. Let me kind of play the devil's advocate with you. I mean, who picked the battle? Jumping out of the box and announcing my choice for the same guy that for 8 years said we ought to have independence. The governor shouldn't mess with the legislature. Bobby Jindal's calling all the shots, and that's wrong. First thing he does is call a press conference and say, hey, my choice for Speaker is a Democrat, Walt Leger, to lead a Republican-dominated House of Representatives. So, if I'm a moderate Democrat, I think I've told a lot of you, my brother-in-law is a state representative, moderate, Steve Carter, Mr. Educational Reform, and a good guy. Everybody likes old Steve. He says, look, I want to work with the governor, but he just says, I'm not going to take your input. He didn't meet with any Republicans, say, I want to build a coalition to work with you. I'd like to have Leger, but can you work with me? Can we get a coalition? He didn't do that. Hey, we're going to have Leger Speaker, boom. And so, I think you want partisan, rather working together, but is that the way to do it?
I mean, I hear your point completely, but I think that Jon Bel did and has been meeting with Republican legislators behind the scenes. There's no coverage of this because very deliberately they've not leaked any of this information. I do think that there have been some deals made behind the scenes that none of us are privy to. Don't be surprised if this comes out in the next 2 weeks or so. That's what I'm hearing from people very close to his administration, that he has aggressively met with these guys and made some deals that have offended actually a lot of Democrats. So I mean, I guess we'll see in the next week and a half or so. I wouldn't be surprised. Don't be surprised though that he has not revealed the fact that he's met with Republican legislators behind the scenes to offer committee chairmanships in exchange for a vote for Walt.
Well, the thing is that I'm definitely believe that, and have said this many times, that you need to have independence. No question about that. I mean, I saw what happened the last 8 years, and of course before then, but certainly the last 8 years. I just disdain having the governor tell the legislature what to do. I really do. So my position on this is that you should have independence, and those people voting shouldn't vote on the basis of party at all. They should be voting on the basis of independence and who you think can do the better job. Okay, I had some real questions as to who can do the better job, regardless of party. So independence first, and party, last, as far as I'm concerned.
But this is a partisan battle right now. I mean, clearly. So, you should tell that to Lance Harris. He's told me the same thing, that he believes in an independent speaker. But, the truth is when Bobby Jindal came in, the House was a majority Democrat, and he selected a Republican, and the Democrats went along with that, just fine. So, I mean, this has happened before. I just think this is the wrong battle to pick. We've got a huge structural deficit we've got to address. And I think people are itching for a coalition government, in cooperation. This is a bad note to start off with.
As far as I'm concerned, the biggest thing is fix the problems, fix the leak, get the ship righted. And that comes before party, that comes before anything else. that's what's got to be done first, because the hole just keeps getting bigger and they're not doing anything to fix it. It needs to be fixed. I mean, look at the cuts that have happened to education, to healthcare, just across the board here in Louisiana, and it's only going to get worse until everybody decides it's time to put politics aside and start fixing the problems.
Okay, so last question, and I apologize, but I did make a commitment, time commitment. So things are really bad, obviously. We bring back Stelly. Okay, Jim.
Well, that's one option on the table. Like I say, there's some people that want to completely eliminate the income tax altogether. So that's why I've been saying for years we ought to have a mini constitutional convention to deal with the whole financial picture. You know, Buddy Romer and I served as chairman of the Constitutional Convention in 1973 in terms of the revenue and we put no dedications, let the legislature come in and decide what the priorities of the state are. So, we could talk about Stelly, but there's 20 other things we could talk about. So I don't know if there's time to do this is the problem. As Lamar said, none of this was discussed during the campaign, and there's been no leadership from Jindal or those in the legislature there. So they've got a massive time problem. There are a number of options out there. The end of the world's not going to come in Louisiana legislature, Louisiana government. It's just a question of can some bright minds fathom something together in this short period of time. So Stelly is one option, but Stelly's going to be looked on as a major tax increase over the middle and upper class, and they're going to howl bloody murder. So I just don't think you can get the 2/3 vote to repeal Stelly there, Steve.
There is a way to, if you do Foster Campbell's plan, I don't know whether or not there's real merit to it, but if you do his plan, you do a processing tax on oil and gas, you could eliminate the state income tax at the same time because there's that much revenue that would be generated. So that could be on the table. I mean, like Jim said, Stelly's just a drop in the bucket. We're facing it would only be about $300 million a year, and for a 1.1 or $1.9 billion deficit, it's not gonna plug the shortfall. So, I mean, we'll see.
Again, what I said earlier, I still stick by. The thing is, what we have to do is we've got to fix the problems first and get the hole plugged. And right now, I haven't heard any major great ideas about how to do that. Nobody's bringing anything, and I know we're still a few weeks out from the legislative session they're going to have, but still you would think that somebody would be trying to float something out there, some type of idea of what we can do to fix the problem, and I haven't heard any of that. So right now it's got to be find the thing that's going to plug the hole and get it to where we can start fixing problems. And right now I haven't heard anything that's going to do that yet.
Okay, so I guess I have the last word here. Other than
no, we're not going to let that happen. You can
I know, but it's going to happen, and that is that business got hit $750 million last year, even though Bob Jindal said there was no taxes. Business is going to get hit regardless. I mean, that's the bottom line. Business is going to get hit. As Bernie Pinson had said at the last session, the individual, the family didn't get hit. Now, they might have had to pay more in tuition. They might have had to pay more in fees and all, but not in personal income. So in personal income tax. So, the thing is that you're going to have to cut, no question about it. But can you cut $2.6 billion or more, or slightly less? Can you cut it? And if so, then identify what it is that you're going to cut. Okay, because otherwise the family is going to get hit. I mean, that's what's going to happen. So, guys, listen, I got to run.